All right, look, I want to tell you something that's been bothering me for a while now. I don't know exactly how it's going to sound. Every generation thinks that they're the last generation. People have been predicting the end of the world since the book of Acts, probably before that. And I get it, but here's why I'm making this video. Because I think most Christians are preparing for a disaster Jesus never told us to fear. And the strange part is the people doing the most preparation are often the ones missing it. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not against preparedness. I'm all for it. Right? I've got food put away. I've got supplies, tools, equipment, everything you could imagine. We do live in Wyoming, after all. And out here, if you don't prepare for things, reality has a way of teaching you those lessons real quick. So I'm not against that. But lately, I've been noticing something. The things that Christians spend the most time preparing for are rarely the things Jesus spent the most time warning about. And the things that Jesus warned about over and over and over again, almost nobody seems to care about. Nobody seems concerned about those things. So I started asking myself a question. If everything changed tomorrow, what would actually matter in our lives? What still matters when the power goes out? What still matters if the economy crashes? And what would still matter if every single comfort that we've built into our lives was suddenly gone overnight? And I came up with five things. None of them are things that you can buy. And none of them are things that come from Amazon. Okay. And the last one is the thing I think most Christians are completely unprepared for. I'd even venture to say oblivious towards. Let's start with number 5, the cheapest one. The ability to sit in silence. No phone, no podcasts, no scrolling. Just you. Most people, me included, some days can't do that anymore. And before you disagree, try it. Try it tonight. 30 minutes, no screens, no noise, no distractions, no nothing. Try it. Just sit there. Most of us don't make it past 7 minutes, much less 30. The average man in this phone touches his phone over 2,600 times a day. That's not a number I just made up. That's measured. The second things get quiet in our lives, we reach for something. We all do. Whether it's a screen, a drink, maybe a distraction, something to fill that, anything. Because somewhere along the way, we've become terrified of silence. And that's weird when you think about it. The Bible is full of men hearing God in quiet places, but we avoid them. Moses, David, Elijah, Jesus himself, he constantly disappeared into solitude to be alone. Yet you and I have created lives where we're never alone with our thoughts. The average person consumes more information in a day than previous generations consumed in months. And somehow, we're not calmer. We're not wiser. We're not more grounded or intentional. We're just louder. And you know what worries me? Is I think a lot of people mistake constant stimulation for strength. Constant stimulation, constant noise with knowledge or wisdom. But if the noise stopped tomorrow, how many people would actually be okay? How many people could deal with that? That's why I think silence is the first test. And almost nobody realizes they're failing that one. But that's your first sign. If you can't be alone with yourself, you're not ready. Not for the end times, not for this afternoon, not for when you get that phone call. Not ready for anything. Then number 4, a skill that feeds somebody. Not impresses somebody, not that you think seems really cool, but feeds somebody, fixes something, builds something, produces something in the real world. A few years ago, During my first winter out here, I had one of those moments that reminds you, you're not nearly as capable as you think you are, buddy. Something broke. Stuff freezes. That's what happens. It's cold, really cold. And I remember standing there realizing that I couldn't Google the answer to this. Google wasn't going to come and help me. A YouTube tutorial wasn't going to help this equation. The answer was either already in my hands or it wasn't coming. And I got to tell you, that is a humbling realization whenever you realize there's nobody coming for you. Because we've gotten used to borrowing others' competency in life. You don't know how to do something, boom, YouTube a video. What if YouTube's not around? You don't have something at home, boom, let's run to the grocery store, we'll get it. You need help, you search for it, pop it into Google. You need something, you just look it up. And that's fine until you're in a situation where none of those things are available to you. Then all you're left with is what you actually know how to do. During the Great Depression, the people who made it weren't the ones with the most savings. They weren't the ones who had stored up a ton. They were the ones who could grow food, who could fix things, who could build things, who were resilient. They could make something out of nothing. We look back at our grandparents. They canned everything. And I think our generation is just coming around to how awesome canning is. And they didn't can it because she was a prepper. They canned because that's what you did. You produced, you processed, and you preserved. You didn't waste things. That was a skill, and it must be learned. It's not something you're born with. In that time, it kept people alive, and it will in the future too. Could be gardening. Could look like welding for you. Could like taking care of animals whenever they're sick. Could be first aid for other people. Could be mechanics fixing cars. I don't care what it is. All right? I care that it's real. Because when things get hard, when things get difficult, usefulness becomes incredibly valuable. The world we're living in right now rewards visibility. The world that's coming, I may very well reward usefulness. And those aren't the same thing. This might be interesting. The skill you learn might not be the skill that you need. But the act of learning with your hands, instead of just looking at a screen and letting that give you all the answers as step by step, it makes you capable in a way that most men, they just aren't anymore. They can problem solve. They can fix, oh, I get that this connects to this and I know how that runs, so I could probably, it will build something in you even if you never use the skill. And capable men get through things that helpless men won't. They would have quit a long time ago. So get a skill. Number 3, a list of people who know your name. Not your username, your name. I want you to think about something for a second. If your truck ended up in a ditch tonight, who are you calling? Let's say it happened in the middle of the night, 2 a.m. Who are you calling? And more importantly, who would actually answer that call? How many people know where you live? And how many people would notice if you disappeared in 3 days? How many people are coming looking? Most men don't like this conversation, right? Because the answer is usually it's uncomfortable. Right? I don't know. Maybe this guy, or maybe, I don't know. We built a culture where men are connected to everyone and known by absolutely nobody. Think about how many contacts you have on your phone. How many of those could you call? They'd actually help you out. You could have thousands of followers and subscribers, but 0 brothers in life. Thousands of contacts, but nobody to call. And history keeps teaching the same lesson. The lone wolf don't make it. The pack does. Every famine, war, collapse, the people who survived weren't always the strongest. They were the people who belonged to something. They had community. Right? Whether that was a family, a church, a people group, a tribe. And community is one of those things you can't build when you need it. It must already be built. You got to build it before. That's why I think one of the biggest lies that modern men believe is that independence, well, that equals strength. It doesn't. It does not. That's a lie. Not always it doesn't. Sometimes strength looks like having people. Number 2, knowledge that doesn't need Wi-Fi. This one hit me harder than I expected whenever I was thinking about it, because it kind of ties in to one that we talked about before, learning a skill set. But knowledge and a skill set can be two completely different things. Most of us don't know things anymore. We have a question, we go to the Google machine, and it gives us an answer. We know where to find those things. You need directions? Cool, I got GPS. I'll punch it in. You need a recipe? Okay, cool, I'll just Google it real quick. We'll figure it out. You need a Bible verse? Okay, let's go Bible Gateway. And again, none of that is bad. It's not a bad thing. That's the world we live in. It's not bad until it disappears. Then you find out how much of your life is actually rented from somebody else, not owned. You don't own it. You don't own that knowledge. Somebody else does. Phone numbers, addresses, right? Scripture, skills like we talked about, just general knowledge. The older I get, the more that I'm convinced I become that information and that knowledge. You become what you fill yourself with. And just having information and actually knowing knowledge, those are not the same thing. Information is something that you can access. So I have access to it. Knowledge is something that you possess. You hold it. And if a man can't function without a machine, eventually the machine, it actually owns the man. The Amish figured that out a long time ago. They're not dumb. They're not anti-technology. They're pro-knowledge. They understand that if a man can't function without a machine, the machine owns him. And they decided they wouldn't be owned. You can draw your own conclusions about that. My thoughts around the Amish are ever changing the older I get. But most of us don't have an answer when technology disappears. We're so dependent upon it. And here it is, number 1, a faith that's been tested. And this is the one that costs everything. It's not money. Everything. It costs your comfort, your pride, your ego, your certainty, control. This is what I think most Christians miss when they talk about the end times. Jesus absolutely talked about wars. He talked about famines. He talked about persecution, economic hardships even. But the warning he repeated over and over and over wasn't famine. It wasn't war. It wasn't collapse. It was deception. Think about that. The greatest threat that Jesus warned you and me about wasn't something happening around you. It was something happening within you. A lie, a compromise, a drift. Something false that sounds enough like truth for you to believe it. And that's why I think that most Christians are preparing for the wrong disaster. Because deception doesn't care how much food you've stored. You see a lot of videos, a lot of people talking about, get these items, get these things, and that's fine. But that's not what Jesus always harped on. Deception doesn't care how many generators you have or how much fuel storage you have. Doesn't care about how much ammunition you have stocked up. The people most vulnerable to deception are not people with no faith. They're people with untested faith because they think those things will save them. Faith that has never been challenged. Faith that has never suffered. Faith that has never had to wrestle with doubt. That will destroy you. I've watched men lose jobs, lose businesses, lose marriages, lose people that they loved. And some of them came out stronger. Not because they had all the answers, but because they knew God. They had been through things. That had been tested. It was not something they read in a book and was theory. It was tested, and that's different. A tested faith is a faith that knows theology right here. A tested faith is a faith that can carry weight. A faith that survives confusion, silence. It survives disappointment. It just survives when God doesn't do what you hoped he would do. That's a load-bearing faith. And that's the kind of faith that survives deception. Look, maybe we are the last generation. Maybe we're not. I don't know. Neither do you. But here's what I do know. Everything on this list would make you stronger, even if the end never comes. A man who can sit in silence is stronger. A man who makes himself useful is stronger. A man who builds real community is stronger. When he possesses that knowledge, he is stronger. Most importantly, a man with a tested faith is stronger. But here's the question around all of it that I think we should sit on for a minute. What if the greatest end times preparation isn't preparing for hardship? What if it's preparing for deception? Because one can take your comfort, sure, but the other's going to take your soul. And only one of those things did Jesus repeatedly warn us about. If this landed with you today, share it. Maybe somebody came to mind who's fearful of that and needs to hear that Jesus actually spoke to this very thing. I'll see y'all out here. Find Jesus, fight culture, and spread the good news.